Hi, I'm Mark Moraza from RP Data, and this week we're going to talk about listings, the number of new listings coming on the market on a weekly basis, the total number of listings in the Australian market, and of course the clearance rates across the nation. We're tracking around about 17% below normal 12-month averages, which is around about 14,000 new listings coming on the market on a weekly basis. We're now looking at around about 12,000 new listings per week, and this has somewhat slumped since the fourth month of this year, and it seems to be trending down in the past 4 or 5 months. And I think vendors are somewhat reluctant to put their properties in the market, knowing that it's a soft market and knowing they might not get the price they want to achieve. Well, that was the number of new listings coming on the market on a weekly basis. Now we're going to look at the total number of listings that are currently in the Australian market. We're tracking around about 130,000 new listings. Now this is well above the average of around 118,000 listings in the Australian marketplace. In other words, it's telling us that the buyers are not really there. There are less properties coming on the marketplace. We have got more sellers than buyers, albeit that the marketplace is starting to reduce in the number of listings, which we hope over the spring selling season will soak itself up. Finally, auction clearance rates. It has changed quite dramatically around the country, and if we look at Adelaide, for example, which was a stellar performer in the last 12 months, Adelaide clearance rates is around about 44%. 16% are selling prior to auction, 29% are selling on the auction day. If you look at Brisbane, Brisbane was travelling quite well last year. We're now down to a clearance rate of only 32.4%. Selling prior is only 5%, with a clearance rate of 52.8%. In Melbourne, there's still a lot selling prior. In fact, 13% are selling prior to auction, 37% are selling at auction. Perth, look, historically Perth is not a very strong market for auctions. In fact, we're only tracking around 18 auctions in Perth. About 11% are selling at auction, but the numbers are so slight that Perth is not really considered to be a strong auction area. Now Sydney, we've been talking about Sydney for quite some time now and how it's been relatively soft for some months, if not a couple of years. Now Sydney is picking up the pace now, I believe. The clearance rate is now 40.5%. 11% are selling prior to auction. 29% are selling at auction. But I think out of all the states, the stellar performers here are, of course, in Melbourne. Adelaide is really coming off the pace. Brisbane has slowed dramatically, and Sydney, fortunately enough for the people in Sydney, we're starting to pick up, and I think this spring we might look for a pretty good clearance rate around about 50%.